Alright guys, so you guys saw my recent video about the OnePlus 8 Pro video comparison with the S20 Plus and P40 Pro, and I would say I was very impressed with the OnePlus 8 Pro. It's finally managing to compete with the big guns in terms of the camera software. And now we have the biggest gun, the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So today we're going to do a comparison video between all three phones and we're going to see which one comes out on top. Alright guys, so you know the drill. We're going to take some photos, take some videos, put them side by side, and I will be recording audio on all three phones and we're rotating among them. So without further ado, let's get into it. So again, I'm going to say that on all three phones they take really great shots, and it's only when you put them side by side with each other that you get to see some differences here and there. So for the first part of this video, we're going to test out the dynamic range on all of these three phones. We're going to test how well they handle light, shadows and color. So when you're taking outdoor shots with plenty of light, you'll notice a trend here. On the OnePlus 8 Pro, it handles the colors pretty well, but if you look at the trees on the back when it's handling the shadows, it's usually more blown out compared to the other two. Whereas on the iPhone, again, it does very well with the colors, but on the back at the shadows, it doesn't really do too much over there and it remains very dark. Whereas on the S20 Plus, it brightens up the shadows on the back and makes it look a bit better. When you're zooming on this shot, I would say the S20 Plus and iPhone 11 Pro Max does smoothen up those edges, whereas on the OnePlus 8 Pro, it's just slightly better. When you're changing from the main lens to the wide angle, you'll notice that the quality doesn't change too much. The best I would say maybe goes to the iPhone 11 Pro, just slight because they managed to maintain those colors. And from those wide shots, when you crop into those leaves over here, the S20 Plus it sharpens up the image a little bit. On the iPhone 11 Pro, it looks a bit soft. Same goes with the OnePlus 8 Pro. Again, when you look at this shot, I would say on all three phones they handle the colors pretty well. And if you crop in, the OnePlus 8 Pro and S20 Plus does give you a bit more details compared to the more processed iPhone 11 Pro Max. Going to the shots with the sky at the back, I would say the iPhone 11 Pro Max usually looks a bit colder compared to the OnePlus 8 Pro and S20 Plus. And if you crop it again, the OnePlus 8 Pro and S20 Plus does give you a little bit more details compared to the 11 Pro Max. In these few shots, I'm just going to show you that there is not much difference between these three phones. With all the updates that have gone through all these phones, I would say all three are doing very well. Against the sunlight, the iPhone 11 Pro Max is colder again, whereas on the 8 Pro and S20 Plus they look pretty similar, but I would say the S20 Plus has a better color depth to it compared to the 8 Pro. And on all three phones you can see here, I like all the colors that are reproduced. For this shot, the 8 Pro looks a bit brighter compared to the other two phones. Using the wide angle, I would say the OnePlus 8 Pro does very well with those shadows on the left, but the overall best picture I would say goes to the 11 Pro Max, coming out with a more natural feel to that colors. Zooming in into this picture, you can see that on the OnePlus 8 Pro, it's a bit brightened up on the back, and you can see those details on the back. Whereas on the S20 Plus, it looks a bit sharper and does give you good details, whereas on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, it's a bit softer and loses those details. Again, against the sun, I would say the S20 Plus does the best. The OnePlus 8 Pro is brightened up a little bit, whereas on the 11 Pro Max, it struggles with light against it. Looking at this shot when it's against the light, I would say that the iPhone 11 Pro Max produces the best picture. You can see a lot of details over there and the image still looks pretty bright. Second, I would say goes to the S20 Plus. It does produce good image and good details as well. And the OnePlus 8 Pro is third behind. It's still pretty good, but it's darker than the other two cameras. Alright guys, so now I'm going to test out one thing on all these three phones. I'm just going to zoom in over here. We're going to see the quality on all of these phones. You can use the zoom camera and also the wide angle lens. And if you go back all the way to the wide angle, this is what you get over here. On all three phones, you can record slow-mo videos, but for some reason, the S20 Plus struggles again and gives you a stuttery video. The OnePlus 8 Pro and 11 Pro Max does give you a very smooth video compared to the Samsung S20 Plus. When it comes to video stabilization, the OnePlus 8 Pro is picking a page from Samsung's book and it pays off pretty well. You can see here that both phones are very stable compared to the iPhone 11 Pro Max. The 11 Pro Max struggles a lot, and I would say surprisingly the OnePlus 8 Pro does better than the S20 Plus. When you're using autofocus on all three phones, I would say the iPhone 11 Pro Max does it best. It's much smoother and faster compared to the other two phones. The OnePlus 8 Pro still does pretty well, but you can still see some stutters here and there. On the S20 Plus, it's a bit of a hit and miss, and it does take time for it to focus. The S20 Plus and OnePlus 8 Pro, they do have a Pro mode where you can use up the 48 megapixel or a 64 megapixel. So for that extra details in those shots, you can use that mode on the OnePlus 8 Pro and S20 Plus. When it comes to auto mode, I do actually prefer the iPhone 11 Pro Max. It does have better color and details. The OnePlus 8 Pro has the biggest sensor among these three phones, and you get more of that background blur in this shot. In this shot, I would say the 11 Pro Max is the best with the most natural looking. Right behind it is the 8 Pro, which also does pretty well. The least I would say is the S20 Plus, where it oversaturates those colors. When you're taking close-up shots though, I would say the OnePlus 8 Pro does very well. It has a dedicated macro lens, which I find it very useful. And when you're zooming in, it does way better than the other two phones. The iPhone 11 Pro Max struggles a lot when you're taking close-up photos, but the best I would say goes to the OnePlus 8 Pro. The images produced is very detailed and the quality is very good. When it comes to portrait shots, all three phones do very well when it comes to edge detection and subject separation. Cropping in those portrait shots, you can see that the edge detection on all three phones are pretty good. When you crop it into my face over here, the OnePlus 8 Pro and S20 Plus do lose some of its details compared to the 11 Pro Max, but I do like that background effect and the subject separation. Another advantage that the S20 Plus and OnePlus 8 Pro has over the iPhone 11 Pro is the fact that you can take portrait shots with the wide angle. It's the best with the OnePlus 8 Pro. It's the most striking picture among the two. Under the shadows, I would say the S20 Plus does give the best image. It does control the shadows and the skin color better than the 11 Pro Max and the OnePlus 8 Pro. When you take shots against the light, the iPhone 11 Pro Max does get blown out and loses some of those colors. And in this part of the video, you can just see how each phone handles the color, the lighting and the shadows when I'm moving around under the sun. Going on to selfie shots, all three phones do trade blows pretty well. The iPhone 11 Pro Max does give you a lot more details, but they do change my skin tones. The OnePlus 8 Pro is consistently not too bad, but I would say sometimes the S20 Plus does better. Again, subject separation and edge detection is very good on all three phones. Against the sun, I would say the OnePlus 8 Pro does the best compared to the 11 Pro and the S20 Plus. When it comes to night shots on all three phones, they do pretty well considering they are not up against the P40 Pro. So guys, we are back here recording on all three phones at night. I have disabled the video stabilization on the OnePlus 8 Pro and the S20 Plus because the iPhone 11 Pro Max doesn't have one, so there's no point to do it. And as I would say, as the iPhone 11 Pro Max with the P40 Pro, you can see it's on the yellow side compared to the OnePlus 8 Pro and S20 Plus. And again, the S20 Plus will make the background a bit more bluish, whereas on the OnePlus 8 Pro it's actually better, more natural looking. Again, on the back you can see on the S20 Plus very blue. OnePlus 8 Pro does a good job, and the iPhone 11 Pro does good with those lights at the back, just that it's a bit yellow. Among three of these phones, I would say that the S20 produces the best images. It takes more time compared to the other two phones, and it does show in its results. Second, I would say goes to the OnePlus 8 Pro, and I would say the iPhone 11 Pro Max does have a long way to go in terms of night shots. This is not to say that the iPhone 11 Pro does give you bad shots, but compared to other competitors, it's still behind. When you're taking night selfies, all three still do a bad job, but if I had to pick a winner, it definitely goes to the S20 Plus. It's a bit brighter compared to the other two, and you get more details on the S20 Plus. So overall, all three phones do a very good job, and it's very hard again to choose a clear winner among these three. So this is it. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video down below. This is Dr. Hermes Tang. Take care, stay safe, and wash your hands.